I've been reflecting on this ritual of writing and this practice of writing. It's always been this space that has helped me navigate the hard stuff. It's really been a space for me to connect back to myself and to hear myself. And what I've come to really understand over the last few months is that when we don't acknowledge our pain, when we don't acknowledge our triggers or our emotions, they show up very sneaky. When you go beyond the surface and into the depths of who you truly are, you will rise. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to share something that's been really close to my heart and how I've been using writing as a tool for deep healing and transformation. And really, over the years, writing has been my portal, my safe place to reparent my inner child and do that inner child work and healing. And it's been the place to process family, lineage, wounds, and really start to break cycles. And I want to show you exactly how I do that. So by the end of this episode, you'll have this really simple but powerful framework that you can follow, that you can use the next time that you pick up your journal to really feel and uncover and just begin to reclaim parts of your story. I used to think that writing was just a way to organize my thoughts, but recently I've been so much more intentional when I pick up my journal and my pen. And as I've been reflecting on this ritual of writing and this practice of writing, it's always been this space that has helped me navigate the hard stuff. It's really been a space for me to connect back to myself and to hear myself. And what I've come to really understand over the last few months is that when we don't acknowledge our pain, when we don't acknowledge our triggers or our emotions, they show up very sneaky. Recently, I was feeling triggered and I took to my journal and I really wanted to get to the root of what was coming up. I was very curious and I've always been that type of person that is ready to face the things head on and not let them stew and simmer. So I was very curious. I went to my journal and then I also leaned on my coach that I'm working with for some extra support. And we really peeled back even more layers as we spoke about it out loud, what I had written. And what was showing up was my abandonment wound. And like I said, it shows up very sneakily. And so when we can acknowledge what's really happening beyond the surface, we can begin to nurture the parts of ourselves that are needing to be tended to. And what I'm learning and beginning to understand is that it's often our younger selves, a younger version of ourselves that is needing to be tended to. And as I mentioned, I've been very fascinated and curious about my own process because I recognize that I've been able to move through hard stuff and move through triggers quickly and really be able to alchemize them into healing. And what I found is that this really boils down to three simple but intentional steps that I want to walk you through. So the first part of this process, and I like to look at it as this like soul writing process or this soul writing ritual. So the first part of this is what I call writing the rage. And so the first step is really all about expression, being so incredibly raw with your emotions and just letting it all out onto the page exactly how it is wanting to come through with just being unfiltered with no judgment and allowing it to just be so honest, not worried about who's going to see this because no one is going to see this. This is your journal. This is sacred. This is private. So just letting yourself be so incredibly real. Say the things that maybe you never thought you would say out loud. And one thing that you can ask yourself to have this momentum going is, who am I still angry at? Hard one. Or what am I pretending is okay? I've been listening to this audio, The Origin of You, and I sat with a question that the author prompted. And when I heard it, I was driving and I immediately felt how much was stirring inside of me. And I allowed myself, I paused, and I knew I had to come back to this particular question and take it to my journal. And so the prompt was, what did you crave as a child but didn't receive? And as I wrote, the sadness, my truth, I realized how I've coped with experiences from childhood. And one of my go-to methods was just mentally rationalizing what happened, things people did, why things played out the way that they played out, and not once really allowing myself to even feel my emotions. And so a really good episode also that I expanded more on this was episode 103, episode 102 with Julian, and it's called how to attune yourself. And yeah, that was such a good episode to really like harness this piece or unpack if you feel like you are in that same space of feeling your emotions feels scary, unfamiliar, foreign territory. That episode is a really beautiful episode to listen to. There was so much insight that Julian left me with that I'm taking with, and one of those being helping me realize this rationalizing mentally. And so this first step in this process is all about feeling your emotions. It's about not having any judgment. It's also about not rationalizing if that's something that you yourself find that you do. Maybe you'll also realize after going through this process some of your own defense mechanisms that come in that keep you from feeling the uncomfortable emotions, the hard emotions. But it's really all about being so real and feeling your emotions. Because I understand and I acknowledge that not all of us are taught, have that safe space as a child to feel our emotions. So in it, we start to reparent ourselves. And then step 2 in this process is about revealing the root. So this is really all about reflection. And once you've given whatever the emotion is, rage, sadness, shame, anger, joy, whatever it is, once you give it the space to be fully expressed, you can begin to look what's underneath it. And this is where the old stories and beliefs and the wounds live. It's the root of that pain that we're feeling, of the emotions. And so something that you can sit with and ask yourself is, the patterns show up every time and fill in the blank, or what parts of my pain are actually belong to somebody else's story. That was a big one for me, to be honest. Realizing that a lot of my own stories and feelings were not necessarily my own. I didn't necessarily come to them on my own. They felt very passed down. So also another layer and a piece to this is that through my own reflections after lots of emotional breakdowns, there was a lot of beliefs and stories that I carried about motherhood. For example, I feel like I adopted, of course, a lot from my own mom. And one of the things that I feel like I took from witnessing her is motherhood equals sacrifice. And so this created a lot of resistance towards motherhood for me. And while I know there is truth in that motherhood creates massive changes in one's life, I don't want to. I choose not to look at them as sacrifices. So when you start to reflect on some of the stories that you've believed, that you've told yourself for so long, and you begin to see how those stories are impacting your choices and your decisions, you can then begin to make new choices and new decisions with that awareness, especially if they aren't serving you. And truthfully, for me, it wasn't serving me. This belief and this narrative that I had around motherhood, and being able to shift that and now be in a place where it's not something that I fear. It's actually something that I am anticipating with so much joy and love. And that's where the true freedom comes. When you get to create this shift and you reflect and you sit in the reflection and you get to start making new choices and new decisions and creating new narratives and beliefs that are actually going to serve you. And the last part in this soul writing process, this writing ritual, is reclaiming your truth. And so this last step in the ritual is all about transformation. It's all about alchemizing, and where you decide, it's where you decide what happens next, and you choose the truth that you want to live. And some questions that you can sit with here are, what do I know about myself now that I didn't believe before? Or if I could write a mantra to my future self, what would it say? There's this African proverb that says, to get lost is to learn the way. And I heard it from Brendan Durrell, who is a soul work and intimacy coach, guide. And I believe, part of reclaiming our truth is about reframing the truths that we once believed. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has felt lost. Being lost felt like I was stuck. And what I'm now learning to embrace is this reframe, that to get lost is to learn the way back to myself, back to yourself. And it's the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves. It's the greatest gift that we can give to our lineage as we reclaim truths and we really start to let go of these falsehoods that we've believed, that have been passed on, not even knowing where they possibly even originated. And here's the thing, reclaiming our truth isn't just about what happens in the moment of writing. Just like in any sacred ceremony, the ritual is only the beginning. The real medicine starts to come after, in the days, in the weeks, even in the months that follow. And that's something that I've learned through cacao ceremonies. There's what happens during the ceremony, and then there's what happens after. And writing, especially when you're using it as a tool for healing, it works the exact same way. This ritual is only just the beginning. It's just scratching the surface, because if you trust, more is going to be revealed in the days, in the weeks, in the months to follow. When you start to let those insights settle, when you start to notice what's lingering, when you start to really see what's new, all begins to rise to the surface. And so just giving yourself permission to let writing be a ritual in your everyday life. You don't need to rush at all to make sense of everything, because that's just not how it works either. You don't have to feel everything. It doesn't have to make sense in the moment, and just trust that it's going to all unfold naturally. So a few reminders that I want to leave you with to really support your own integration is really to sit in the stillness. Notice what comes up when you aren't trying to do anything. Revisit what you've written. See how it's shifted, if the energy still feels the same, and then just stay in conversation with yourself. And I know that might feel a little foreign, however that looks like to you, but simply using writing as a way to stay in conversation with you. Writing when you feel called, not because it feels like it has to be an everyday thing. because that's where we lose the magic in it. Just write when you feel really called to write, when you feel like there's something that is rising and you want to, and you're curious. Just like in any sacred ceremony, integration is where the medicine begins to take root. So that trust that more is going to be revealed. The more that you write, the more that you speak to yourself and connect with yourself. Thank you for being here with me in this space today. My hope is that this ritual of writing the rage and revealing the root and reclaiming your truth gives you a doorway, acts as a portal back to yourself whenever you need it. And remember that healing doesn't all have to happen at once. You can, as one of my coaches has said, you can dip your toe in and then you can come back. So just keep showing up for yourself, keep listening to what your soul wants to say, and trust that every single word that you write is a step toward your own personal liberation and freedom. So it's really not just for you as well. It's not just for you, but it's also for the ones that came before you and the ones that are going to come after you. All this work is for that. And if you feel like going deeper into this process, you can download Write to Heal, the free writing ritual and guide that walks you through this process with more prompts as well to take you even deeper. And you'll find the link in the description of this episode. And if you've received value, please make sure that you share it out with someone who you feel would love to know about this. Hit the subscribe and follow button so you can continue to stay in this community where we continue to go beyond the surface and break cycles in our lineages. So until next time, keep writing your way home.